Hey everybody, Almost in Agreement. We're continuing to go through the 10,000 candidates on this year's 22 election. That was redundant, saying 22 and this year at the same time. So we're Almost in Agreement, almostinagreement@gmail.com. You find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. You can go to our website, almostinagreement.com. While you're there, I've got my election guide, which is going to have links to the interviews that I do, specifically broken down, similar to the way the Knox County Election Commission gives you the runoff of who's pulled petitions. So it's just a full list of everybody that's running in their individual seat kind of thing, so you see exactly who's against who and that kind of stuff. But like I said, a link to the show page for that guest if I've had them. Also, while you're there, I got my jobs description sheet. It's a little bit of a layperson's version of how what to expect and what people can and can't do in the seats that they're seeking. Go to your favorite podcast provider, give us a follow or a subscribe or a like or whatever there, so that you get all these episodes automatically. And then tell your friends about us. That's always the best form of advertising. So help us grow the show by letting more people know about what's going on here, and that we're going to keep coming with as many candidates as I can get my hands on. And today I've got Steve Weiner. He is running for seat 10 in the election, or in the Knox County Commission. So we'll talk to him about what's going on there. Steve, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
I appreciate you coming out. It's I don't know. It's like, for me, this is hopefully letting other people who have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns and a lot of time of not paying attention as a way to transition into paying better attention to the way our government is and who's involved in it and kind of stuff like that. Because I was one of those that I didn't pay attention. It was over there. I was at work. I was staying with the kids, that kind of stuff. And so, local politics is always something my friends and I would talk about like it's important, but never pay attention to. And so I just dove head first and started going crazy. We started in 20. So we had that whole election cycle, and then I did a bunch of stuff over the city last summer, which gets us here. So your first time on the show, and you're a new candidate to me at least. So tell me a little bit about Steve and how Steve went from a wee child to the person in front of me today seeking a position.
Well, we moved up here, my parents, in '93 to be close to my grandparents.
It's about the same as me.
Well, cool. I grew up went through the county school system here. I'm a graduate of Carnes High School. I was involved in scouting when I was in school, and eventually got my Eagle Scout doing that. So
Nice. We're a scout house.
Yeah. It's a very you don't see a lot of civic engagement with a lot of people nowadays, and
Right.
I think that's a good way for young people to get involved in in their community. But I went to UT for my bachelor's degree, graduated in 2009. I worked over at Peninsula Psychiatric Hospital and the Village, which was a part of it for a time, from 2008 and through 2013, and that's when I stopped and went to law school. So I'm definitely aware of some of the mental health issues that a lot of that face our community, especially with regards to the mask mandate, and childhood development. I'm kind of acutely aware of that.
Right.
So I graduated from law school in 2016, passed the bar the same year, and I run my own practice out in West Knoxville. Do a little bit of quite a bit of different things. I just don't do any family law or criminal law, really. I just do mainly small business representation, estate planning, commercial litigation, things like that.
Gotcha. Okay, and so what, so you referenced your scout background, and that kind of gets the ball rolling in civic engagement and stuff like that, but, why now? Why this seat? Why are we running for office?
Well, I think we need a conservative choice in this seat. And the incumbent right now, I'm running against the incumbent, who's Larson J. He is not conservative. He will never come out as being conservative. He won't stand up for the individual liberties of the public. I don't know if you remember this, but back in 2020, when we were going through all the Board of Health stuff, late 2020, we had a public forum that he shut down. They turned off the CTV feed on that, because he was just sick of hearing from the public. And I believe the commission's work isn't done until the public are fully heard. I don't care if you're there to 2 a.m, 6 a.m, whenever.
I sat through one of those. It was awful.
Well, I applied for the Citizen Board of Health position. That was
okay.
Up.
Me too. I was there. That was the one we sat through.
Yeah, and I was there to like 2 o'clock about 1:30 in the morning for that. And the people who stuck around for that, I was really impressed by, each and every one of them, but I was very fortunate. I came in second. It's always not fun to lose, but
You beat me, so you got that. You got that going for you at least.
yeah. Well, so I've been engaged for some time in the community, and I think it's time we have conservative leadership in the seat 10 position.
Okay, because I think Larson specifically has a lot of what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't know. We'll come back to that one. I got to think about that for a second before I make sure I word that correctly. But because I do remember those meetings, and I remember those meetings specifically, and this is one of the frustrations I have just having sat through that meeting, and as I learn more about how these parts and pieces are working, like I don't accept the idea of shutting it down. Like I'm 100%. People are allowed to speak. That's the job, and sometimes it's the job to listen, or it's always the job to listen. But the part that frustrated me about that is a lot of those types of meetings. I was just talking to Sherry Wood. I had her on earlier today about we as the public don't know where the responsibility lies on certain things. And, we want our voices heard, but we're talking to the wrong people. And that's one of those things that I want to work on for what we do with this show, is trying to help people understand the correct avenue. Because I think especially some of those Board of Health madness meetings, as well as some of the masking stuff that's going on with the schools right now and that kind of thing, is we're having these long meetings and the public's coming out and voicing their opinions, but somewhat inaccurately. And I want to help trying to clear those gaps up as to who the actual authority lies with. Because I think, again, like I think there's a lot of stuff where, like I was talking to Sherry Witt, like I said, it's like people are mad at her for these new license plates. And it's like, well, it's a state thing. The state put these new license plates in place.
I like them.
I don't mind them either.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think about license plates very hard. So to say I would ever not like a license plate would be, I'd have to wait and see what would happen there. But just the idea that, I understand it as a lay person, that I could say, I think this license plate ugly. I don't want to put it on my car. It doesn't look good on my car. The old ones look better or something like that. And blaming it on the clerk, even though it's not the clerks. They don't get to make that decision. They just deal with what the state hands down to them. And I think some of the other stuff that we see, some of the most contentious behavior around, tends to kind of be happening in the body that doesn't control it. And that's one of the concerns I have moving forward. And you could just kind of put that in your back pocket for election day. So when you say true conservative, I always struggle with some of the blanket terminology we're all used to hearing, because there's, especially on the right now, the definition of the party has swung around pretty hard in the last couple of years, especially through the Trump years and all that kind of stuff. So when you say conservative, let's break that down. What do you mean when you say I'm the only conservative choice?
I'm all about individual responsibility. People have an individual autonomy. That's what conservatism means to me, that people should be able to make decisions for themselves, and that we shouldn't treat people like adults like children, so that's what it means to me in a nutshell.
All right. That is a good, concise answer. I appreciate that. Cause I think, as I've mentioned a lot on the show, I tend to like myself a libertarian, which parts of conservatism line up with and parts don't. Cause I think one of the kind of labels that goes with conservatism is some of the less, I guess the nice way to say it would be the less socially liberal stances on some of the other positions. And I think it's important to be careful with this part of the conversation because of what you can and can't do from this seat. I don't want to paint a picture on an issue that you have no authority to talk about from your seat, because again, that's another one of those things that frustrates me. I don't like, I don't like when a school board candidate is a good example. When a school board candidate is running, talking about curriculum, that's not their decision. They don't get to make that decision. That's a state level thing. They just have to do the kind of deal. And so I want to be careful about that. But again, the social side of conservatism is the part that I don't necessarily agree with, because I don't necessarily understand how that fits into law. And maybe you can help me understand that from a broad term perspective as opposed to a specific. I'm kind of floundering on this thought process. I apologize. Because I guess to me the kind of the Christian base of things getting added into some of the governmental things going on seems to be at least attached just to conservatism, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's one of the things that I personally stand against, and am curious where I guess you are on the same topic. As far as as far as the religious side of conservatism being part of government, I guess would be the
Well,
question.
for the county commission position that I'm running for, my mom always told me not to talk about religion if I could help it. So I think I'm going to take the safe route here.
That's fair. Like I said, that's what I'm always afraid to start to like, because I am a victim of letting people in positions of power talk about things that aren't within the power that they were given for that seat, and I don't like that, and I want to be careful not to add that accidentally to conversation. So I'm looking at your flyer here, and to do small businesses, supporting small businesses and healthy environment for our families, and opposing government overreach that has been disrupting our economy and restricting our freedom. So, as it applies to county commission here, let's expand on that a little bit for me.
Well, just in terms of increased regulation, I think this thing with the Board of Health is a perfect example. You can't have an unelected and unaccountable group of people be making decisions about how we as individuals live our lives. I think the fewer regulations we can have as a county, the more individual responsibility the public can have, and the more individual freedom the public can have, is always a good thing. People, like I said, people need to be allowed to make decisions, whether for good or for ill, about their own lives, and not have government interfere in that. And that's sort of my thing, so.
I mean, again, I'm on board with that, but what do we do about getting legal weed in Tennessee?
Legal weed's an issue for the state legislature, and I'm not going to,
I know.
get into that.
I'm just trying to talk about stuff because, again, like that's one of the things to me. I don't smoke pot. I've never smoked pot. I have a handful of times. I never enjoyed it. And again, that's where some of the at least definitional conservatism I'm on board with, but we don't see happening because, again, like partisanship to me is one of those things I get lost in because of things just like we're talking about. It's like I'm kind of forced by brand recognition, for lack of that others, to paint certain things onto what we're talking about right now because of the label you've put on yourself.
Right.
And I'm trying to be careful about staying within the context of county commission, but just these are the things that pop up because these are the more pop culture items in my head, at least. About let's put a hard break in there. Let's just move on. Okay, so small business is a big thing for you, getting government out of the way so people and companies can do what they need to do to grow, and again, growth I think is the real. I think growth is the number one thing commission has real hands on, and I think is a big topic right now. I would argue that the growth we saw on this last census, if it was just a year later, would probably be double. I think that when the census hit and then was right at the beginning of the influx of people that we've seen in county, and I think that's evidenced by the housing market and all the stuff going on there. So we have infrastructure and we have places for people to live, and I think both of those things land hard in the commission's lap.
I agree.
Get us there. Get us to a better Knox County with houses for people to live in. And
the fact of the matter is that, like you said, people are coming here all the time because Knox County is such a great place to live. That's why, my grandparents came here. That's why we came here. It's a great place. I mean, I'm originally from Central Florida, and I remember we lived in a pretty good neighborhood down there, and we had bars on the window. I mean, we don't have that here, and that's what attracts a lot of people here. But as for the development issue, these people are coming, and we have to find some place where they can live. Otherwise, we're going to have outrageous housing prices like we've been seeing recently all over the country. And
I saw a stat the other day. Knoxville has the fourth largest increase in average rent over the last year and a half or something like that.
I mean that, and the housing inventory is I think I saw something like 8,000 housing units short.
Right.
I mean, it's only going to get worse. And the fact of the matter is, we're going to have to find some place to have these people live. There are all these people who are moving here, and that's a lot of the development issues and zoning issues that commission faces. I think the zoning issues are some of the most difficult questions that this county commission faces because
I agree, and I think they're the most impactful, and I think they're also the least talked about outside of commission meetings.
I mean, either way you go on whether you appease the community who's resisting the development, or you deal with the developer, at the end of the day someone's not going to be happy. So the way I look at development is this: if we can kind of be like Solomon, the story of Solomon, right? Kind of split the baby on the issue,
right?
And have a happy medium so that you don't have as intense of a land use, like units per acre, that maybe the developer wants, but then you don't do nothing at all, like the people who are resisting it want.
Right.
You have to find the right medium, and each case should be evaluated individually in terms of infrastructure, what kind of streets, sewage, what kind of infrastructure is going to be needed to support this. And I think that we can get the developers on board with some of the infrastructure improvements that go along with some of these developments, like for sidewalks and roads and parks and stuff like that. They can share the burden. I would be more inclined to be going along with the more intensive land use, as long as they provide the infrastructure to support it.
Well, one of the concerns I've heard on that one particularly is that it's like, okay, it sounds good, it sells well, but I don't know, the best analogy I guess I kind of heard on it was basically like you inherit your parents' house, and your parents have $1 million mansion out in the wood or out in some giant piece of property. You gotta afford the upkeep and the taxes and all the other parts and pieces on keeping that. You didn't have to bear the cost of building or buying it in the first place, but there's still cost of ownership. And so if we can't afford to build the sidewalks and the parks and the roadways, and they're going to get built for us, that's great. I'm not opposed to the premise of that. But when we do things like that, are we thinking about how that's going to impact budget with maintenance and upkeep and all the other stuff that's going on?
Right. And that's also always a concern. But a big part of that cost is the initial construction of these infrastructure improvements. Of course, they will need to be maintained in the future, and that's something that once you bring in, say you have a new development with 200 homes in it or whatever, for sake of argument, that's 200 new residential taxpayers, right? And some of that increase in tax, expansion of the tax base, I call it. It's not an increase of tax, it's an expansion of it, because more people are paying the same tax.
Right.
That means you have more, to go with. That will be.
Well, and I mean, theoretically, I guess you would take, you have a 5-acre plot of land that has now been split a bunch of different ways, and the property value goes up because of the houses and stuff on it. So not only it's a new tax, and it's a higher it's a higher tax than what was on the same square footage
because it's developed.
Right, because it's developed, and it's not adding a current tax. Because I mean, again, that's an easy one. You say you're conservative, and it clearly states that you're firmly against any raise in property tax.
Absolutely, we can work with the budget and the money that we have. We got to live within our means as a county. I'm debt free. I live my life debt free. I know that's kind of weird, but I try to keep my books balanced on a personal level. I believe government should do the same thing. If I was had the budget of the federal government, I'd be so far backwards on my debt,
right,
that I'd never be able to survive. And if it's not good for the people, why can government do it, right? So
because they can print it. That's different at the federal level. They can just make new. But
we go on forever about that.
Yes, that is one of my I'm not a big fan of the Fed, because I think that is a specific topic that a lot of people are interested in. We have are we going to be able to get this tax base up without directly raising taxes on people? Because there's a lot of want. The school system's got a lot of want. There's a lot of conversation about teacher pay. That's out of commission's hand. I'm not going to really go into that with you, but and then the sheriff's office, and they've been short deputies for 4 years now or something like that.
Let me tell you this, the sheriff's office and our police officers need to be fully funded. I mean, we can find it in the budget. We can find the money from somewhere in the budget.
I mean, that's I don't know how to respond to that other than to say fully funded is a weird phrase to me, because this is one of my I come at this as a lay person when I hear government speak, there is a special language that pops up every once in a while, and fully funded is one of those to me, because as I understand it, fully funded means the budget needed to do, or the budget asked for essentially by said department, is fully funded, because by definition our schools are fully funded, but that's only because we make up that locally. But our schools are underfunded for what people are asking for the schools to be. And I am not of the camp that we need more money in the schools just because that's good. That's the only way to fix it. I'm not a believer of the idea that more money fixes the problems. But I am again, just in the trying to understand what's happening in front of me, phrases like fully funded just kind of
Well,
throw me sideways.
The sheriff's office has hundreds of vacant positions, like maybe 100 and some odd vacant positions, if I recall correctly. These are people who are not on the streets. These are people who are not, working in jail. It makes our jails less safe. It makes the community less safe. When I say fully funded, I mean these positions that the sheriff needs to have need to be supported, and we need to have enough. We need to pay these people, these new deputies, enough money to retain them here.
Because I think that's one of the catches at play for sure. Because I think, at least in last year's budget, when I was talking to Sheriff Spangler about it, he had funding for a significant number more officers than he had. He just didn't have officers to fill those holes.
Right.
And part of that was base pay, and part of that's this, and part of that's the other. But I think that's one of those nuances that gets lost in the conversation. Again, trying to understand what fully funded means versus, how much does the sheriff want, or how much should we spend on it? Again, it's just some of the phrasing stuff that I get lost in when I'm trying to understand what's in front of me. I wasn't trying to pick on that. Yeah. But I think, I think there's a general, especially in some of the social stuff going on right now, there's this general police issue. But I personally, I'm not fully opposed to having a properly funded and staffed sheriff's office, and how that relates to the commission and their at least budgetary oversight of it. Okay. I mean, I like that one, and we'll talk about that one later, but I'm trying to think of what else. I don't know. I just blanked out on it.
Well, I guess we can talk about some stuff.
Come on, bring it to me.
I just want to talk to you about, the campaigning. You probably don't talk a lot. You talk about a lot about the issues I noticed on your show, but you don't talk about the mechanics of running for office. You might have. I don't know. Maybe you have.
Well, let's talk about it, and I'll tell you if I talked about it.
Well, I just, got started on this race, and let me tell you, I'm doing, 12, 13-hour days, like every day during the week, between my job, because I got to serve my clients too, obviously. I can't let them just slide by.
Right.
I got to take care of that. And I got a campaign at the same time, which involves going to meetings, door knocking, fundraising efforts, just being out there in the community, right? It's an incredibly challenging. I don't think the public really realizes it's an incredibly challenging thing to do.
And I think especially when you take a countywide seat like the one you're seeking versus having one of the district commissioners where you're only in one pocket of town.
Well, still
makes it a little bit of a.
Still, you still have to go out and reach people.
Right, I agree.
And it's the mechanics of this are just absolutely it's incredibly tough to do. I think people need to understand that when people run for office, I don't think you mentioned this. I mean, it's really a challenge. It's a personal. You don't have any free time anymore. Until the primary is over. Until the election's over, you don't have any free time, and that's just the way it kind of is. I mean, no more. Sleeping in on the weekends. No more. Hanging out. Like today's Friday.
Right.
It's not like, oh yeah, it's Friday, the weekend's here. No, it's Friday like it's just another day of the week.
Right.
For me now. And that's the way it is. And that's the way it is, I imagine, for most candidates who are, out there pounding the pavement, so.
I mean, I think I think I agree with you. I think the mechanics of how this whole thing works is quite interesting. I've been personally very interested in the school board races this year just because of the change in format for them. Because I went through a whole spell when we were doing the city races last summer, trying to understand that process and how that whole thing works. And then now we're in this one, and then how do we engage voter turnout in a non-presidential year and like that whole thing, which is super fascinating to me, especially with the way this ballot this year, with all the judges and the DA and the public defender and all these other offices that are 8-year offices that only pop up every once in a while,
right?
And trying to get a barely engaged public to get on board, because I would assume, and maybe you could attest to this now, if not in the future, that some of your door knocking people are extra confused. I would say that that candidates, like when I have Larson in and talk to him about it, if I asked him the same question when he ran last time versus this time, I'd say there's more confusion this time because of how many people are out knocking doors. Because now you have. There's not a ton of judges that are running super opposed, but now you have judges in the race. We have the sheriff's race going on. And I could definitely see how it's, I guess the easy way to put it is this is super overwhelming for me. And I'm seeking this out. Mm-hmm. I'm chasing this down, and it's too much for me to handle. I can only imagine people that are again, just going about their day-to-day life, and you're like, hey, I want to tell you about my race. Which one are you doing? Which one is that? Do I actually get to vote for that? Because I mean, again, I think I like.
I've gotten that too. I mean, I've gotten that, you know, from some people like, is this countywide? Is this my district? You know, because there's a lot of confusion about that. So I thought my commissioner is so and so, where depending on where I am. You know, that's true. That is your commissioner, but you also have 2 at-large ones. Right. And just to be clear, I'm running for the district. You mentioned this, the District 10 one. Right. I believe you had Devin Driscoll in here the other day, and he's running for seat 11, which is another at-large seat, right, which is being vacated by Justin Biggs, who's running for trustee. See, it's all these moving parts, right? You know, sometimes the public, you know. Oh, and like especially my favorite right now in all the moving parts, and I'll ask JJ about it when he comes on. But like I feel like it was an intentional move on JJ's part, is his signs that are all around town. It says reelect. Well, it's technically true.
It is technically true. Yeah. I agree. But I would say that 9 out of 10 people, if you say, what does reelect mean? It means give him the job again, like he still has it.
What's the funny thing is that both Sheriff Spangler and Sheriff Jones have reelect on their
signs. Exactly. That's the point.
If I was someone who wasn't, you know, less aware of what was going on than I am, I wouldn't know what was going on. I think are there two sheriffs or something, or
exactly?
Or what? I'd be super confused by that if I wasn't an engaged voter, you know. But it's just a confusing thing for sure,
right? Especially because that's a weird rule that they have for the sheriff, is that you can run as many times as you want, you can hold the seat as many times as you want, just no more than twice consecutively.
I mean, you have that for other county-wide offices too that are not state offices. We had a big thing, you know, several years back where we had a case that went all the way to state Supreme Court on the term limits issue, and we had a big thing with commissioners having to step down and who's going to be the next commissioner, you know, and different county offices. And this was back when Tim Hutchinson was sheriff, and he had to, you know, leave that, you know, and it was kind of a big mess because you had all these people who were no longer eligible to serve, right? Because of the ruling by the state Supreme Court. So, you know, you have that.
It's super interesting. See, this is the stuff. Like this is the one thing that makes me sad that I didn't get into this sooner, to get to actually witness these things when they happen. Because I was around, I just didn't pay attention back then.
Yeah, it was a big mess. It was I'm glad I wasn't around, you know, involved in this at that time. It would have been you had a different structure of. I think back then you had commission structure was a little bit different too. You know, you had multiple commissioners in the same.
Right, I think it was two per district instead of one.
You had in the most populous district, I think I had an extra one above that, if I recall. It was done differently. So the way we do it now, I think it's much more logical with the 9 districts and the 2 countywide. Right.
It's concise, and again, but I think you're right. I think one of the things that people don't consider is that these at-larges are like, you essentially have 3. No matter where you are in town, you have 3 commissioners.
That's right.
You have your commissioner that has the number of your district behind him, and then you have 10 and 11 as well. And so if, you know, whether you have an ideological difference or a very specific policy difference with the one that ends up being elected in your neighborhood, you have other options of people to talk to take your issue to and see if your issue is valid, for lack of a better word. And so again, like it's been crazy trying to get this all in front of me, coming from a person who didn't pay attention. But as I'm getting to understand there's some pros to the way we do it. I'm not mad at it. I think this specifically, the way we structure commission is quite logical. Mm-hmm. Okay, so and again, like the structure of this, you're talking about the actual structure of campaigning and how much time you're spending on. You said 12-hour days and stuff like that. Like how much of it are you spending in media similar to mine? Because this is always one of the things too that I complain about.
I wish I had more interviews. I mean, I've had two presentations I had one at Farragut Republican Club a week ago Thursday, and I had one last Saturday. You know, but in terms of media presentations like this is the first one, I hope, of many. So, you know, I'm trying to get that arranged.
I hope so too, because it's a sad state of affairs if I'm the only one you get.
Well, I mean, I'm working on it. You know, okay. I'm definitely working on getting different appearances done and so forth. But you know, it's really about the grassroots of my campaign. It's you know, get out and pound the pavement and you know, talk to people about the issues they care about at their door. You know.
Okay, so all right, so let's put it this way. So, as for something to continue talking about, so in your door knock you've done so far, what have been some of the top issues that people are asking about?
the number one issue that I've seen so far is the issues of development. People are concerned about that and the congestion and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, is it's not really something that commission deals with so much. It's the school board, the mask, the federal mask mandate. I've been hearing a lot about that recently as well.
Yeah.
That's something that's in the school board's hands, along with the law director's
Right.
hands.
I think that, realistically, and he's not on the ballot, so it's not
Right.
it's not that important, because that's really, like, as far as I gather on that story, that's the only elected body that has any play in that conversation at this point.
It brings us back to what we were talking about earlier about land use and zoning issues. That's your property. That's your property, your land, your where you live. It doesn't get more personal than that, and that's what most people I've seen that I've talked to really care about, or what's going on around me. Is my land going to be diminished, and because of there's going to be all sorts of development, and traffic, and all the problems that people associate with that. Is that going to affect me? How's that going to affect me? And how can we work with developers to mitigate some of those issues?
Okay, I get, like, I ask this question a lot, and I always feel kind of gross for it because it's a dumb question. But has anybody even begun to have the conversation of how much growth we actually want and what we can do to mitigate that? Or is it just again, like, I understand that it's a free country. You can, if you want to move to Knoxville, you can move to Knoxville, but we don't have to make it easy. We don't, like, because, like, again, like, one of the more libertarian plays on it's like, if some developer, that's their land, they bought that land from a farm or whatever,
right,
and they want to put 200 units and put 3 houses per acre or whatever, squeeze it in there super tight and all that stuff, and it's an old country road to get there, and the people that buy those houses hate that old country road. A good realtor should be telling you about, hey, it's a great neighborhood, it's a great house, but it's really hard to get in and out of because of the infrastructure in place. Shouldn't the free market let that be their problem?
It's all what the market will bear, right? When people are unable to afford or don't want to move here anymore, they won't move here anymore. It's market forces. The reason why we're such an attractive place to live is because it's a beautiful place.
Agreed.
You have access to wonderful outdoor opportunities, be it if you like to boat or if you like to hike or whatever it is. Taxes are low here. It's beautiful. Is that me or you?
I don't know.
No. It's a beautiful place to live. Its taxes are low, and the people here are really friendly people. It's like I said, I came from Florida where we lived in a good neighborhood. We had bars in the window.
Right.
We had like gangs in the school. You didn't really have that here. So.
I do acknowledge that point, but as far as a community, has there been an actual active conversation about not necessarily just how to deal with growth, but how to, obviously manage growth, that's going to be a conversation we had, but how much growth do we really want to have? And is it out of, is it out of character for, those homeowners that exist to be like, no, we don't want more of this, to be able to actually push that opinion? Is that something our commission should respond to? Is that if, we're here, we're voting for you, we own the land here now. Can we see if we can pump the brakes on the mass growth that we're having? Here's
the problem, right? Everybody who, wants to buys a house, right, in a community, like say out in Hardin Valley or wherever, they want their house out there, right, in their new development. But whoever comes after that, we don't want, we don't want any more of that, right?
Right.
And that's the problem, right? Because when is it, is it really fair to people who want to live here that they have to pay outrageous real estate prices because we have a lack of inventory? There's plenty of space out here in the county. You look out in the east part of Knox County,
sure,
out in Coreyton, Mascot.
District 7 is massive.
It's District 8. I think District 8 covers maybe roughly a third of the county.
Right.
But,
is it 8? I thought it was 7. Anyway, it's fine.
Yeah, 7 is Halls and Powell and that. But District 8's there's plenty of space out there, for people to live, and stuff. We have plenty of places for people to live here in Knox County, and I think we can accommodate the growth in a way that is responsible, not only to people who live here, but people who want to purchase reasonably priced homes in our community.
But again, I don't know. Again, that's the market. The market to me says that if we don't want to let development happen at a rate that the housing prices run up, then it slows down. It slows down the influx of individuals and would level out the housing market over time. Maybe not. It'd stay high price, but it wouldn't. It wouldn't be as volatile as the deals that we've got going on right now.
this is a nation. Like I said, this is a nationwide issue with high housing prices, and I think the way you fix that, I mean, at least for here, is to have more inventory in a way that is responsible. And like I said, shifting some of the costs onto, well, it goes to the developers, and then developers would tack on whatever that is to the cost of them to the price of the home or whatever.
Right.
So to ultimately get passed on, but they would have the infrastructure needed to support the increased development.
All right. I mean, I get that, and for the most part, I wouldn't advocate to stop growth. That's not the idea that I truly push at, but it's one of those, thought experiments, I guess, that I always kind of go down, and that how much control should the government have over inventory, and how much is the government controlling the growth versus the market controlling the growth that's going on, which especially in land use case, the government's the one controlling most of that.
Well, I think that,
well, it controlled it in the past, and it's adjusting it in the current.
That's why, you have the planning staff, make recommendations as to what is appropriate. I think that they should be given a lot of weight to the decisions that they recommend to the county commission and, the planning commission makes.
Right.
So they're the ones who are the experts at that. I don't claim to be an expert on the real estate market in Knox County, right? That's not my background, as it were, But there are experts who do know on the planning commission staff, what is appropriate, what they think is appropriate based upon the plan for that given area, that given part of the county, the growth plan for that given part of the county.
Right, and I've heard discussion of there's a new 30-year one that's supposed to be getting into place, or it's in the process right now. Kim Frazier, who's running for 11, was talking to me about that a little bit. Have you seen it? Have you looked at it?
I've not. No.
Okay, it's something I need to get a copy of, because I think. I think it's a good and bad thing kind of wrapped together. I like the idea of having a long vision, looking out far into the future and trying to prepare for things that are 10, 15, 20 years out, because 20 years out is when we need 7 more schools built and that kind of stuff on the infrastructure side. But also, we need to see what's going on the next couple of years and figure out some mechanisms to adjust over time. Because I think one of the problems that we do have with the growth that we're seeing right now is we don't have mechanisms to deal with them. We're just kind of ad hoc fixing, trying to repair a lot of land use adjustments and stuff like that. So I don't know. Anyway, I again, this is one of those things that I know I don't know a lot about, and I'm trying to understand better, and I appreciate your insight on it. So I don't know. What else is on your mind that I'm missing that I haven't seen yet?
Well, I just want to talk a little bit about the term. It's a 4-year term, as you're aware, for county commission. My opponent, he's not going to come out as a conservative, and I'll tell you why. This is why I think he doesn't want to come out and say that he is a conservative. He's, based upon what I've heard, he's wanting to run for mayor of the city of Knoxville next year. And in the city of Knoxville, you cannot run as a conservative within the city of Knoxville and win. The demographic breakdown in terms of Democrat versus Republican voters. And I think in the city it's like 60-40 Democrat, and maybe in the county it's 60-40 the other way with Republicans. You can't come out and be a conservative in the city election, the city council or city races. And
ask Eddie Manis about it.
There you go. Right. If he were living in, if Larson was living in Nashville or Shelby County or someplace like that, if he were running for the office that I'm running for right now, he'd be running as a Democrat, because it would suit him to do that in that community. I'm a conservative. Whether or not I'm here in Knox County, Davidson County, or Shelby County, doesn't matter. But my opponent, if he were running in a more Democrat-leaning jurisdiction, like I said, Davidson or Shelby or someplace like that, he'd be running as a Democrat.
Right, and you'd be sitting, chilling out, waiting for this primary to get out of the way, and
not facing the primary.
Right, and him and Dylan would be yelling at each other, and then you could just relax and wait till May to get to work. Because again, that's like the partisanship and all that kind of stuff is one of the fascinating things to lean, especially as a person like myself who I don't like the partisanship. I don't think I don't genuinely think it's an overall good, but that's something I have actually a specific question that I want to do later on that.
Okay.
So we'll bring that part back up. But I do think it's interesting, especially I've talked to Larson a few times for the show. I do have him scheduled here for his campaign show here in a couple of weeks. And trying to figure out the politics of the game as opposed to just the position of the game. Like there is a game to it. As trying as you're a conservative, and that's true to you, but there's the game that gets played around you. Watching the mechanics move. Like again, I bring up the school board one because we changed that to a partisan race, and so the machine or the apparatus or whatever you want to call it starts kicking in and doing its thing, and so trying to manage an understanding of that on top of managing an understanding of the actual government at work is a fun burden to play with for me, I guess is what I'm going towards.
It's like I said, I'll get back into what I was talking about before. It's so much work, running a campaign like this, because I'm so many places, like, several times a week I have meetings I go to, I'm door knocking, I'm fundraising, and you got to be mindful of, the political considerations, and separate from the running for office considerations,
right?
Separate from the actual job related, things. And there's so many players, so many people who have so many different interests and so many different alliances, as it were. So and so likes so and so doesn't like this person. There's so much of that stuff. It can be hard to navigate for sure.
Yeah, I think it's I've got a plan to go deep into some the fundraising stuff, probably closer to the last couple of weeks before primaries. I don't really want to dig into the fundraising thing, because that's one of the things that, again, that's the politics side. If people start attacking fundraising as opposed to the message that the individual the individual person is campaigning on, it's about who you got money from too. And I think it's a valid thing to look at. I think it's something that people smarter than me should put more effort in than I do into trying to understand some of the influences that go on in this process.
Well, I mean, mine's a grassroots effort. I have, a great groundswell of support from just regular people, right? That's who we ultimately are accountable to in the end. Is the regular, regular voters vote. Everybody's vote counts the same, right? Doesn't matter if you're Bill Haslam or anybody else, right?
Right.
And that's where I think I'm going to have the edge in this race. Is that I have the support of the regular people, just the regular working citizens of Knox County who want to have good conservative leadership, and just want the keep our government open, keep our taxes low, and keep government out of their lives.
All right, that concludes the show-ish, sort of. So it's time for the official 5 questions. All right. If you've been listening, you've already heard them, so you have a little bit of prep for this.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
All right. So and we've already covered some of it a little bit on and off throughout the conversation. But the official 5 questions. Number 1, is this your first run at office? 1B, is this the beginning of or is this a step in the career for further policy? Like, is there a future seat that you seek?
I can never tell about what the future is. I've committed to serve this full term. What happens in 4 years? I didn't think I'd be doing this in 4 years ago, or let alone 2 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't want to speak about the future so much, because things change,
right.
Circumstances change, and maybe I will, maybe I won't. I just don't know at this point,
All right, but this is the first time you've run for office in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I was, I don't know. I think I mentioned this to you when we were on the phone before, that I was considering pulling a petition to run for a general sessions judge. Mm-hmm. I decided not to do that. This was the same election cycle too. This was,
this year.
Yeah. And the reason I didn't do that is that I want to talk about issues like development
right.
issues, like keeping Knox County open for business, stuff like that. And you had
should have done the judge. You get paid way better.
You had Dino on here talking about. I was listening to that program where he was talking about you really can't, when you're running for judicial office, really take policy positions, and there's a rule against that.
Right.
You can't do that.
I mean, to interrupt the 5 question things on a thing to me, like the more I'm figuring it out. Honestly, I don't know that I feel like the set of judges that we are electing should be an elected position. I feel like that doesn't make sense to me, because it's hard enough. I don't know. I just like, how do I make a decision on a judge?
Well, the candidates who are running for judge, and I think Dino did a good job of this when he was on there, should be explaining what their role is, and what they bring to it in terms of experience.
Well, that was because I was asking them all those questions because I didn't know what he was supposed to do.
Right. I mean, we have Sessions Court, we have Chancery Court, we have Circuit Court, we have Criminal Court, and they're all on the ballot, and I'm not going to get into detail with that because, you already talked about that with Dino and probably others as well. But, you have all that stuff, it's confusing for the general public. What's the difference between a circuit court judge and a chancellor?
Well, and it's really how much discretion can you really have in that seat as an individual? Like how much differently could Gino, or I guess Pridemore, who's sitting in the seat right now, how much difference can they really do in an outcome of a particular situation that's within the bounds of the law, of the quote job law kind of window? Like, and that's the other part that's really confusing to me, because like who's going to go out and do the history check on how do we figure these like and especially like Gino's he's coming out of private practice. Mm-hmm. He has no history as a judge. What do we make a decision on? He seems like a cool guy. I guess that works.
Well, the reason I like Dino quite a bit is that he's got the experience. I'm not wanting to plug his thing. You already talked to him about his campaign quite a bit in his previous show, but he's got a lot of good experience in Chancery Court. And I think the Bar Association, members of the bar.
Right, I got a copy of the last one that was put out, the survey or whatever.
Right, and they have a high, and they'll be doing that for these judges as well. And I think you'll see that a lot of people have a lot of high respect for Dino, because of his background and what he's done over the past quarter century of practice. So.
Anyway, so hey, this episode brought to you by Dino's campaign. Just kidding. All right, so question 2. This is the super important one. Favorite ice cream?
Breyer's mint chocolate chip.
All right, very specific. I like it, and I like a mint chocolate chip too.
I like the Luigi's lemon ice, but that's Italian ice.
That's
that's
cheating.
Cream, so
you're right. Yeah. Dino said gelato or something like that. I was like, that's not really ice cream. Man, fine, I'll take it. And favorite place to eat here in town?
I like to go Double Dogs. It's near where I live, and I like their boneless chicken wings. I was getting into a discussion with a guy I work with the other day about. He was getting on my case about being a millennial and that, you want to eat chicken without the the bone in it, like you are so lazy and this and that, right? I thought it was a really bizarre conversation. Like,
I kind of agree with this guy, but go ahead.
But it was I said, well, it's easier. You don't have to crack your teeth on the bone. You can just eat it like it's regular food. It's not, when I eat, it's not supposed to be a job. It's supposed to be something that's enjoyable.
See, but part of hot wings, or part of that process to me is the mess. Like when I was a kid, I remember this so distinctly. One of my best friends in high school, his brother was working at one of the Hooters in town, and for my birthday, he drugged me with a couple of other friends to his brother's Hooters, and we did this whole thing. And so the family rule from the guy that worked there was, when you're eating wings, you're not allowed to use a napkin. As soon as you use a napkin, you're done. Because it's like we get a 50 wing plate, and we all share. As soon as you grab a napkin, you're not allowed to get another wing. That was always the rule. And so that part of the mess that is eating wings that's important to me from that story from many moons ago.
Right.
All right. So I love it. That's great stuff. Number 4 is we talked about this a little bit already. Do you feel like partisanship in elections is a net benefit for me, the voter?
It brings out, I think, the best issues. It brings out the issues more, and that's in that term of public partisanship brings out the issues that the people care about, right? Because you're debating about whether it's taxes or gay marriage or abortion or whatever it is you're talking about. It really brings out issues for voters to be able to distinguish candidates, and I think in that sense that it does provide a benefit.
Okay. And then question 5 is, obviously you're a conservative Republican. We've talked about that a bunch. I would like for you to name me a Democrat, whether it's local or state or federal, that you've seen the work they've done, you appreciate what they're doing, you feel like they're a good leader, that kind of thing.
Well, this is not someone who won an election, but this is someone who ran in 2020 against Eddie Manis. Virginia Couch, Virginia Couch
I had her in here. Yeah.
She was an adjunct professor when I was in law school, and I thought she was a really conscientious, real smart woman.
She was fun. I like her.
Yeah, and she's a very engaged person. So she didn't win the election, but that's a Democrat who did run for office, who I have.
I'll take it. That's fair.
A great deal of respect for.
That's not the worst version of the answer I've gotten so far, so I'll take it. No, I liked Virginia a lot too. I enjoyed her on the show. She was a fun candidate to talk to. She was very interesting, super smart, made me feel extra stupid, which is not that hard for a lot of people to do. But anyway, all right, so that concludes the part that I need to get out. If you want to take a second and plug your website, Facebook page, that kind of stuff.
You can find us on VoteSteveWeiner.com. We have our Facebook page, Steve Weiner Conservative County Commission, seat 10. You can find us on there. And if you have any questions or concerns, our contact information is on the website and the Facebook. So anybody who wants to reach out and to talk about the issues, I'd be happy to do it. So
I'll spell it for everybody. Make sure they spell it specifically your last name. Steven's pretty common.
Yeah, VOTESTEVEWEINER. VoteSteveWeiner.com.
Cool. I'll put links in the show notes for people so they don't have to actually remember. But for those that don't and want to do it manually, that's I always worry about people spelling stuff wrong because you end up in some weird places when you spell stuff wrong in the address bar and stuff like that. Well, I really appreciate it,
especially with a last name like mine. Right?
Exactly. So I mean, that's what I got. If there's anything else you want to say or do, if not, I'm going to do an outro and we'll call it a day.
Well, I just want to let people know I'm the conservative choice here. You know, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of it, as a matter of fact. And it's nothing. Conservatism is nothing to be ashamed of. We should be proud of. You know, it's got a deep tradition in our country, and I think people should be more proud of that. So that's, I guess, what I have.
All right, Steve Weiner, everybody. All right, Steve Weiner running for seat 10 election commission. That's at large. If you're in the county and you get to vote for this seat. So. Go to our cheat sheet. It'll help you out breaking that stuff down. So it's almostagreement.com/job. No, it's almostagreement.com/22 voter guide or something like that. Anyway, go to the website. You can click through. It's easy to get there. It'll give you a quick breakdown of all the seats, all the people that are running for those seats. You can link through to their individual webpage and or the show that I've done with them. Go to our Facebook page, our Instagram, our Twitter, our YouTubes. That's going to have all the stuff there as well. Hit me up with an email, almostagreement@gmail.com if you have any questions. If there's something I'm missing, somebody I haven't talked to that you think I should, I will respond to those. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Please give a follow, a like, a share, a subscribe. Give a good review, and then most importantly, please tell your friends about us. Easiest way to get the best information is not from me, but I don't know, help us out. We're going to try. We're trying to make this a little bit more lay version, so it's not like high-end, crazy journalism. It's just people talking and trying to understand what's going on around them. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great afternoon.